This program is brought to you by LegendaryStrength.com. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. It is recommended you talk to your qualified health professional before making any changes to your exercise plan, diet, or prescription medication use. Legendary Strength is not responsible for any claims made during this program.
Hello, I'm Logan Christopher, and this is the brand new Legendary Strength podcast. I decided to try this out because I wanted to, basically give another way of putting out information out there on training and everything that I'm into. So like I said, this is the first episode, hopefully of many more. If this is successful, if people like it, there will be a lot more, and I'll tend to probably end up doing it more often. But to start with, I'm thinking maybe every 2 weeks or so. A lot of what I'll be doing on this is covering training, covering health and nutrition information, and also covering the mental training side. And that's actually going to be what we're starting with in this episode. In the future, I'll also be conducting lots of interviews with other top strength coaches, nutrition people, all sorts of stuff there as well. So really, it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's going to be free. So you're going to be able to learn a lot of great information and just be able to pick it up through iTunes on the podcast. I'll also have it available on my website, Legendary Strength. I'll probably also throw videos up on YouTube. So, like I said, it's going to be a lot of fun, and thanks for listening to this first episode. So I mentioned those different topics that I'd be covering on here. This goes into something that I came up recently, about a year ago, I believe it was, that I call the Peak Performance Trinity. I call it the Peak Performance Trinity because by working on these three things, the Trinity, you really can better achieve peak performance. I'm always looking for just every little thing that can help me perform better, to help me achieve my goals in the gym as well as in other areas just a little bit better. If I can find something that improves my strength 1%, I'm going to go and use that, assuming there's not other risks associated with it, like doing steroids. That's not something I'm ever going to do, and we'll get to a little more on that topic a little later. But with the Peak Performance Trinity, there are what I came up with 3 different areas that you can seek to optimize in order to get the best possible performance. These 3 areas are your physical training, your health and nutrition, and then the mental and energetic training. So I want to take a little bit of time and cover each one of these in turn. And let's start with the physical training. Now when I'm talking about these, most people have, to some degree, if they've been working out for some time, optimized one or more sections, but few people really work on all 3, especially the mental training aspect. There's such a dearth of information out there, so little of it, and so few people applying anything more than the very basic concepts of, say, visualization. And when I say mental training, most people just think of mental toughness. And sure, that's important. That's also really easy to build, and it's such a small subset of everything out there in mental training, and I'd actually say one of the lesser important facets of it. But we'll get to that in a bit. So physical training. I want to start this off with saying that when it comes to physical training, anything and everything works to some degree. You can honestly, a person that is out of shape, completely overweight, if they followed along with a Buns of Steel DVD, they would get some results from it, assuming they did the other things as well. Of course, losing weight's a huge aspect of the nutrition side in there, but doing some physical exercise, it doesn't matter what the physical exercise, some physical exercise is better than none at all. If you just have basic goals or broad goals of getting fit and getting strong, once again, just about anything works. You can do strictly bodyweight exercises, you can do kettlebell training, you can lift barbells, you can do any sort of other variation. You can use odd tools like Indian clubs and maces. You can use so many different things, and you can do it in any sort of way for the most part. You can do singles, you can do higher repetitions. The key important part for everyone to understand when it comes to physical training is progression. If you are able to have progression in what you're doing, then you can improve, you can get better, and that's really the end result of what you want, getting better and having that then apply to whatever your goals happen to be. Now, while everything works, there are certain things that work better than others. There's a reason I do not work out to Buns of Steel DVDs. I train the way I do because I think it is the best training that I possibly can do. It's also in alignment with what my goals happen to be. That is the other biggest factor, and something I would put in the mental training aspect, because goal setting is such a huge factor, and there are some mental blocks and different things that can get in your way. Anyway, you select what your goals are. If you just have a basic goal of losing weight and getting in shape, once again, you can choose any different tool, you can choose basically any different training plan, and it's going to work to some degree. Are things better than others? Absolutely. But you pick something basic and you start with that. If you get to the point, I know I've done this in the past, but there's so much information out there that you get into paralysis by analysis. You look at all these different things and you can't figure out what the best is, so you don't even start. That, my friends, is not the proper route to go, because you are going to just suffer. You're not going to get the results from doing nothing. So it's better to do something, better to do just about anything than to do nothing at all. Of course, certain things are definitely worse than others. If you are seeking to lose body fat and you just start powerlifting, that may not be the best thing to do. Could that possibly work? Absolutely. If you go from not training at all to lifting heavy weights, you will build muscle, you will likely lose fat along the works. Are there better routes to do it? Yes. So realize that anything works to some degree. You want to seek to optimize what you're doing. If you're listening to this, likely you've been training for some time. You have some idea of some of the things out there that work better than others, depending, once again, upon your goals. Something I'd like to add that I think really is one of the things that can help to optimize. Because remember, that's what we're seeking to get in the Peak Performance Trinity. We're seeking to optimize what we get out of each of these different facets in the Trinity here. So with physical training, if you pick any sort of basic program that's decent enough, not, lifting pink dumbbells when you're trying to get strong, unless of course you paint 100-pound dumbbells, paying something like that, which I wouldn't recommend. If you're doing any sort of decent program, you really, it's not hard to get 90% of the optimization in the physical training. But like I said, seeking to add just that 1% here and there, and to continue to improve with it. If you're hitting plateaus all the time, there's something wrong with your training. Yes, plateaus sometimes happen, but there are ways around them. So you're going to have to continually experiment and find what works for you. Work with different training plans. The more you work with and trying a whole bunch of different things, especially early on, the more experience you're going to have, the more base or foundation from which you can then draw on when you come to those plateaus again and seek to go through it. One of the biggest things that came about for me in the past couple years was the whole concept of biofeedback training. Also, in sometimes called, though, is slightly different, an intuitive form of training. Now, when I say intuitive training, most people, there are people that get into this without really building the foundation they need, and in effect what they're doing is they end up hallucinating their results that they're getting from their intuition. You take, the stereotypical gym goer, his intuition tells him to work on bench presses and curls all day, because that's all of his experience, that's what he thinks he needs to work on, when really he's just hallucinating that, if he's saying he's relying on his intuition, which I would guess most of them don't. People, when they talk about their intuition in any different field, a lot of times it can be this same thing. If you don't really have a big base to draw from, years and years of experience, then having that intuition is not something that's easy to really have. Now, with the biofeedback training, specifically what was put out by Gym Movement, I think is one of the greatest tools for optimizing your physical training, because it is a way you can get feedback from your body, hence the word biofeedback, that even a beginner can do. Yes, it does take a little getting used to. Some people seem to get right into it right away. Other people have a little bit more trouble doing it. What Frankie Ferry says, who's basically the creator of this system, was this biofeedback training is a way to fast track your intuition, and I fully agree with that. Now, at this point, having done that for some time, you're able to better than have real intuition with your training. For instance, being able to feel out the movements, be able to know what feels good, what doesn't, what's going to test well, what doesn't, before you even do the test. And when you do this, you can, the whole idea along with that, some of the other concepts, and maybe we'll do a whole episode on the topic of the gym movement protocol in the future. Maybe I'll bring on Frankie Ferries or Adam Glass so we can cover this in some more detail. But the whole idea is for perpetual progress. Every single workout, every time you do an exercise, you should be able to improve in it. And I agree with this. This was something I sought to do even long before the gym movement protocol came about. Did I do it every single workout in every exercise? No, not quite. But most of the time, in most exercises, I did just that. So with this biofeedback training, it also offers you to not hit any plateaus and to not get injured in your training. Two huge things. If you can avoid those, then how far can you really go with the physical training? So that's just one tip, one thing I think you should look into for optimizing your physical training. It has worked great for me. It's worked great for a good number of other people. Still, most people out there have not given it a fair shot. Once again, whole lot more I can go into this and the whole topic, physical training. Once again, this is just meant to be an overview of the peak performance Trinity. So let's move on to the next section, which is health and nutrition. I mentioned before that I seek to, do whatever I can in order to optimize everything I do. However, there is certain things I'm not willing to do, such as steroids. That's because there are side effects from doing steroids. No one will really doubt you on this point. When it comes to training, I seek, for the most part, health first. Health is the first thing. After that is performance. And third for me is aesthetics. Other people have this completely flipped. Many bodybuilders, aesthetics first. I mean, that's exactly what they're seeking to do. And if you want to become the best bodybuilder in the world today, I mean, you have to use steroids. There are natural things, but you're not going to be able to compete on the Mr. Olympia level if you're not on steroids. So other people, and this is their choice, and I'm fine with them making whatever choices they choose to do. Same thing with powerlifting and strongmen in many different ways. They seek that aesthetics first or their performance first and not health first. I don't want to do that. I want to have longevity in my life in being able to train for a long time, to being able to optimize my performance over the long run. There's people much older than me, and I always laugh. They say things like, oh, when I was your age I could do this and this, and I'm thinking to myself, I don't say this out loud, but I can't wait till I'm your age because I'm going to be so much stronger than I am right now. And I completely believe that. That is a belief I have, and that's because it's a belief, it's something that I'm going to put into action. I have many years with which to train, with which to get better and better results, to get stronger and stronger. So health first, performance second, aesthetics third. That's how I personally structure my training. Sure, there are a few things with the feats of strength. Occasionally health may not be the guiding principle there, where I'm really am seeking performance, but for the most part in my training, health first. What is this going to do for your physical training? So when I talked about the peak performance Trinity, it is to optimize your performance. It's really to optimize your physical training and what you can do. So you have the physical training, which then helps you towards that goal. The health and nutrition, also the mental and energy training, those also are aimed toward optimizing what you can physically do. So these other things are a little more of the support. doing a coaching call with Bud Jeffries for our Superhuman Training membership site, which you can check out at superhumantraining.com. And one of the questions we were answering had to do with nutrition and how that played into mass and as well as strength. Realize that if you just did the physical training, if you didn't, there are people that are incredibly strong that eat junk food all day, that don't look at their health or nutrition at all, and definitely don't look at the mental training side at all. If you just did the physical training, you can still go really far with that. But once again, here I'm seeking to optimize everything and also optimize longevity. While a person may be hugely strong, if they eat only junk food and don't look at their nutrition, they're not going to be able to do that for a long period of time, like I personally want to do. So when you're looking at the health and nutrition, another aspect of that is, in the long run, the lack of disease and also the lack of injury. The lack of injury, of course, is going to have to go to the training part as well. You really shouldn't be getting injured from your training. If you are getting injured from your training, it's not a badge of honor that you survived, ripping your skin or getting real hurt through something. Instead, you want to avoid that, because that then takes away from your training time. It can lead to chronic problems that you never really get over. So as much as possible, you want to avoid injury. Some things, especially if you're in contact sports, it's really inevitable. It does happen. But avoiding that as much as possible. And then also, along with that, really with nutrition, there are certain ways and methods, this goes along with the health thing too, of treating those injuries so that they're able to heal and recover quickly. Same thing with disease, and this is both, chronic lifelong diseases or diseases that kill people, as well as just things like the common cold. Any of these things can get in your way of training and getting the results you want. Being able to train, being able to perform at a peak ability. While you get much stronger, you look at anyone who is, having heavy flu-like symptoms, and they can be weak as a kitten there. Now, at some elite levels, for instance, Dennis Rogers, he was telling a story where he really was badly sick, but he had a show he simply had to perform. And while he could barely walk to the stage, when he got on there, he's able to basically flip a mental trigger. Anchoring is basically what it was, that he was able to go into show mode, and he could do everything he had to do right then. And then as soon as he left the stage, once again, really had no strength at all in him. So there are higher level things upon this, but that's not something you want to do, and that's really tapping into your health. That's not something that I would recommend anyone do. When you need rest like that, you should absolutely rest. Though it's good to be able to work around it should the need arise. So having this lack of disease and injury is one big part of health. Another thing that how this supports the physical training and the peak performance is recovery. If your nutrition is optimized, you're going to recover much better from your workouts, which will then allow you to do more at the next workout, which then allows you to get stronger, to get faster, and to proceed with the physical training that much more. So recovery is another aspect of this. And once again, nutrition plays a huge role in this. Your other aspects of health, like sleep, for instance, huge important factor for training and recovery. You just take someone, the best training program on the world, but don't let them sleep, they're not going to get very far on it. Another aspect here would be having the energy to perform. If you eat a bunch of crappy food and you feel crappy all the time, you're less likely to go into the gym and train. Most people that, that don't work out at all, they don't have the habit of it, that being the main big point, but they also don't feel like they have the energy to perform either. Now, when it comes to strength, if you eat certain foods, you're not necessarily going to get, 5% stronger from them. But your food and nutrition is going to have a bigger impact in any conditioning that you do. This is definitely true. You can experiment with this. Having a cleaner diet, you'll be able to endure much better. Yes, there are things that will play into your strength. Absolutely, I do believe that. But it's not going to have as big of an impact as, say, in the conditioning or endurance field. So once again, having the lack of disease, injury, supporting recovery, and having the energy to perform, both saying you have it so you can burn calories basically while you're training, but also, you feel vibrant and ready to go out and train. So both on those different levels. That's how the health and nutrition can support your physical training and the peak performance. So next we move on to the third leg, which is mental and energetic training. Now that I'm looking at this, I'm actually thinking of splitting this up into two different groups because they are really big. But for right now, mental and energetic training. This is such a huge topic, and this is something I will be going into more detail in the future because first of all, I have a couple of programs like the Think and Grow Strong program. I have people that are having great success with that have really turned around their training, lost weight, been able to set PRs when they weren't doing it before despite doing great physical training. There are people having huge success, but it's not my most popular program. Why is this? I think it's because, one, the misconceptions about mental training, like that mental toughness thing. Oh, I'm mentally tough, I don't need to know any mental training. There's that. There's also a lack of information about what mental training really is, like using the different tactics and how it can specifically help. So on that note, I'm writing a book that I plan to publish cheap and have a whole bunch of information that really covers this. That should be out within a couple of months. Just got started with the book, but it will be coming down the line, and it should be quite a great book. I really want to make it the definitive volume for mental training in order to build strength and other gym goals like fat loss. While there are some great books out there, nothing really recently has been published, and all the mental training for athlete books are sports that don't have to do they're sports rather than performance in the gym. While there are some weightlifting sports, that's really not the main focus for me. I've done some competition in the past, but not all that much of it, though I plan to do more in the future. It's really seeking to perform better in the physical training rather than just competition. And using mental training tactics in order to lift a heavier weight is something different than dealing with your apprehension when you're playing against a different team, for instance. So most of the mental training books cover those sort of sports, and it is quite a bit different in what you can do with that. So once again, that's coming down the line. So again, mental training, it's a huge topic, a lot of misconceptions on what it is, and we will be covering this a lot more in the future. Same with the energy training. Many people think that this is such a woo-woo field. It's out there, and there are reasons that they believe that. One, people that do go off far into this field do tend to be a little woo-woo. Although things may be true, they present it in such a way that it's hard for the average person to grasp or to want to believe because, they're such an odd person, for instance. There's also a lot of charlatanism in this field. When you're dealing with the subtle energy systems of the body, for instance, with energy testing, it is so easy to throw it off that people can do it. It takes a lot of practice in order to be able to do it properly, to be able to do it right. And so people can then fake you, and they say they're working on your energy systems, but if you don't have the awareness for it, do you really know if it's true or not? Same with some of the mental training as well. Although with that, sometimes it's easier to see the results. The truth is, though, even though there are charlatans out there, and it is some out there stuff, that in reality it exists and it's real. I've seen tons of proof. I mean, there's scientific proof. They nowadays have some instruments that can pick up the energy fields of the body, for instance, with the acupuncture points. Many people, that's generally, at this point, most people accept that as something which has to do with the meridians, has to do with the acupuncture points, and they have things that can check the electrical resistance of the body. And looking at the different points which lie on the meridians, they find a much lower electrical resistance than at any other point on the skin in the body that doesn't have to do with a meridian or acupuncture point. So there are ways of testing it, and when you actually get into this field and experience it, people that go for acupuncture and have great results out of it, or you're doing some of the other stuff with the different energy systems of the body, you'll actually see the results from it. So it definitely does exist, and it can work. When you learn to have some awareness of the energy systems in your body, then you're able to do some drills to be able to fix things and realize that certain things can be problems for you that for different people, just like in the physical body, not a problem for them. But when you're able to work with these different energy systems, you can, once again, optimize your performance. A story I like to use because it was pretty amazing, and I didn't even have the intention to do this, was I was doing a workshop and my older brother happened to be there. He had had chronic back pain for quite a long time. I was teaching a drill which helps to hook up the energy systems of the upper half of the body with the lower half of the body. He did this drill and all of a sudden his back pain went away. Just like that. So pretty amazing result out of just doing a simple energy drill, which most people probably wouldn't even feel, but he had a definite physical feeling from that. His pain went away instantly. And of course we did some further things along with that to help him with both the mental and energetic side to help resolve that pain, because the truth is, in many physical injuries, that yes, there can be a chronic physical problem, but in order for that to really exist, there has to be an energetic problem as well. And if you clear up that energy, that can pave the way for clearing up the actual physical problem. So it's a very important thing to work with there. When we talk about mental training, I always tell people that there are two roads with mental training. The first is to remove blocks that stand in your way. The sad fact is most people do have blocks that are standing in the way. This can be the beliefs, values, all sorts of different things that can really block what they're trying to achieve. If you, for instance, have a belief, and this can be completely unconscious, that you're not strong in a certain exercise. Have you ever said to yourself, oh, I'm not that strong at that exercise? For instance, with myself on squats, I say that, and I have an excuse, a rationale for it, that it's because of my longer limbs. And while it's true that I am not built for squatting, I have allowed this belief to stop me from doing squats. And if I choose to, it also has to go to the fact that I'm working on other goals. I don't care all that much to work on my squats, although it's a great exercise. So I haven't really sought to improve it. But if I really wanted to, then it would behoove me to clear up that belief or change that belief that would allow me to get strong at squats rather than standing in my way. Could I eventually, through just the physical training, get to a point where that belief becomes changed? Yes. But if I cleared up that belief first, change that belief around so that I could really move forward faster with the squats, I would get faster results out of doing it than just going through the physical training. So that's just one example of removing blocks. And if you think about yourself, think about certain things you haven't been able to get results in, then it's likely that you have a block standing in your way. And once again, when we're talking about mental training, also the energy training, one of the biggest parts is having awareness of it. But most people lack awareness. Like I said, that belief can be completely subconscious, which means you're not even aware of it being there, yet it is, and it's stopping you from achieving what you want to achieve. So there are many ways that these blocks can take place and be there. And of course, then there are many ways we can also work to remove those. So that is one road for the mental training. The other road is simply to optimize or improve what you're currently capable of doing. For instance, story of Charles Garfield in Peak Performance, a great book on mental training. He talks about the Russian scientists leading them through hypnosis, deep relaxation, and visualizing of himself being able to bench press 365 pounds. This was right after he did a max of 300 pounds and struggled mightily for it. After doing these mental training tactics for about an hour, he was able to then lift this weight easier than he lifted before. And this was a previous lifetime best, 365 pounds, and he hadn't trained it for years. That came about just through doing this. So this is using specific mental tactics that can improve what you're currently doing at that very time. So once again, 2 roads, and we didn't really get into any of the specifics on it. We will cover a lot more on this, but like I said, the whole concept for this, the first Legendary Strength podcast, was to just give you an idea of the peak performance trinity. The physical training, health and nutrition, and the mental and energetic training. Now, for most people, you probably have gone pretty far with the physical training. A lot of people also go pretty far with the health and nutrition. Some people, do certain types of energetic training. Not a lot of people really seeking to optimize their mental training. But wherever you're at, just adding a little bit on top of what you're doing or improving what you're doing can give you much better results. If you want more information on the Peak Performance Trinity, all you got to do is go to legendarystrength.com. Just sign up with your email on that page. You'll get a video and a free report that goes into some more details. Got a big broad overview of it here. There you'll get some more ideas on specific tips and tactics you can use if you haven't grabbed that already. So that's going to cover it for this first podcast. I would love to hear from you on whether you like this idea, or if you didn't, or you have any suggestions for future episodes, anything like that. Please be sure to email me, contact me through the site, logan@legendarystrength.com. And once again, thanks for joining me. I hope you got a lot out of this, and I'd love to hear your comments.